Now, if we went around the room, which we won't, and I asked you, tell me what are your guiding principles? What are the things that really govern your behavior? Where are your values at? I've been doing this for enough years with enough groups that I can comfortably predict there would be a list of about 10 to 15 incredibly virtuous sounding ideals capped by some version of something like honesty above all else, which is inarguably a terrific principle to hold. It's a lot of crap, but it sounds great. Right? Because really, out there in the real world, as great as it is to aspire to honesty above all else, aren't we really much more likely to be guided by things like, for God's sakes, don't rock the boat? Or no matter what you have to do, don't ever let the amount in my retirement account go below X. Right? And that's not all that virtuous sounding, is it? But let me tell you, before you get too uncomfortable with the prospect that maybe those are the things that really are your guiding principles, let me tell you, there's absolutely nothing wrong with those being your guiding principles. That's just the way we as humans react to the anxieties and pressures of real life. Isn't that right? So the problem isn't having those as guiding principles. The problem is not realizing or acknowledging that you have those as guiding principles. Somebody not wanting to rock the boat never hurt a soul. But if you don't pay attention to the fact that you don't want to rock the boat, and so you don't rock the boat when someone is doing something wrong because you don't want to confront them because you're too anxious about what's going to happen, now could that be a problem? That could be a huge problem, couldn't it? So remember, we all have kind of an ongoing dialogue in our head all day, every day about problems that we're solving. Now, I'm a clinical psychologist. I promise you, those of you that have been embarrassed about that, it's perfectly normal. Now, if you're having extended conversations with people that aren't really there, then you might want to seek some help. But we talk to ourselves all day. That's just the way we think about things. Isn't that right? So what I want to hand you is a list of what are the things to listen for when you're getting ready to step out on the slippery slope. Or maybe have already begun to step out on the slippery slope. And the first one is, I just squeaked by on that one. Now, could that be benign? Absolutely. Did you have a tight deadline? You got the job done. You got it done just in time. Terrific. You squeaked by on that one, pat yourself on the back and move on. That's wonderful. But is that usually what it means? If we're squeaking by, usually that means a job that was not well done that no one's yet discovered. Isn't that right? So pay attention when you hear yourself say that. I hope so-and-so doesn't find out about this. Well, it's a wonderful thing to throw a surprise party for someone. Any of you that have not done that, I hope sometime in your lifetime you do. It's a terrific experience, and if you do, I hope whoever you're throwing the party for does not find out about it. If that's not the reason you're saying that to yourself, it smells pretty bad. All right? Does anyone believe that our country is overwhelmed by an epidemic of pathological humility? Anyone here losing sleep because you hope someone's not going to find out about something good you did? I don't think that happens very much, right? If there's something you don't want someone to find out about, it's probably not something good. Isn't that right? So-and-so can cover for me on this, same thing. How many people need something to be covered that's good? That's just not very likely, right? Such a small thing, no one will notice anyway. Well, if you don't want them to notice, why would you not want them to notice something that's okay? Just doesn't make any sense. And the last one, which is of course the IRS's favorite, is everyone else does it, for crying out loud, right? And I cannot think of any situation under which that would be the sign of something good happening. I just can't imagine it. So, as you think about those things, remember, those are what you need to pay attention to. The red flags, you need to monitor your red flags every day, right? Critically important. Now, I know that we need to shut down here relatively soon, and so I want to begin closing by talking a little bit about what I suppose most other speakers would actually start by talking about. And that is, how come we're having this conversation about ethics in the first place? Well, at the risk of sounding a tad preachy, I would say the most important reason, where I come from, is that the world deserves to have more good people and more good companies doing more good things. Now, you heard me say a while ago that motivation is different for different people. That may not float your boat, and that's okay. There are other reasons you might want to be motivated to think about developing a preventive maintenance approach to ethics. Now, I understand that everyone in this room is independently wealthy, so this doesn't necessarily apply to you, but you might know someone that is not independently wealthy who might be bothered by fines of hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. That could be a good reason to make sure your behavior conforms to the law and to the code of ethics. Jail time, it's worth avoiding. Now, it's true, although it statistically would have been unlikely, you've already missed your chance on the possibility of drawing Martha as a roomie and learning some interesting things about how to decorate small enclosed places at the holidays. So that's not even something you can hope for anymore. You missed your shot by a few weeks on that one. That'd be worth avoiding, right? And maybe none of those things float your boat. Here's one that I think grabs most people's attention. Now, I know there's a lot of business people in the room. You all are used to dealing with some pretty big numbers. Let me throw out what I consider to be a pretty big number. $400 billion. Does that qualify as a big number? More than Bill Gates has under the cushions at his living room? I think it's a pretty big number. Anyone know what that number is? Take you off the hook here and tell you. That number is what was considered a conservative estimate by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners of the amount of money lost in this country each year to white-collar crime. A few things to know about that. If $400 billion and the fact that that's a conservative estimate is not enough, number one, that was in the mid-90s, before all of the gigantic ethics problems that we've uncovered ensuing, so you can't say the number's inflated by that. Number two, that is strictly the expense of white-collar crime, which is just one piece of the ethics pie. It's a big piece, but it's not the only piece. That figure does not include things like the costs associated with unfulfilled contracts due to inadequate or inappropriate oversight. That cost does not include the legal fees or settlement costs for discrimination actions. That figure does not include the legal fees or settlement costs for hostile work environment actions. And that figure also does not include what I personally believe is overwhelmingly the largest figure of all. And that is the cost of business that you don't ever even see because some prospective customer or some prospective partner or some prospective affiliate has seen or heard something, no matter how insignificant it may seem to you, that causes them to wonder if your organization is 100% on the up and up. And let's remember something. Our businesses, the integrity of our businesses, is judged by everyone from the person answering the phone all the way up to senior management and the board of directors. All right? You don't go into a hotel, get lousy service, and say, well, you know, that's okay, because I know the board of directors, they're kind of upstanding customer service types, right? You go home and you tell all the kinds of stories that to your friends and associates that keeps them from going to that hotel. It's no different in your business. Last of all, big as $400 billion is, it is a dated figure. Let me tell you what they said a couple of years ago. And that is that their current estimate, and again, just for white-collar crime, is that 6% of gross is lost every year to white-collar crime. Now, I don't care how big or small your company is. 6% is a bunch of money, isn't it? And that ought to be pretty motivating in itself to think about developing a stronger ethics program.